أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, everyone is in good health and hopefully up to date with regards to the material that I've sent out and recommended for reading. I'll say it again. I've said this in the second session, but I'll say it again that in case you really don't have much time available ready for extensive reading and things like that, then I would advise to just stick with either the Ayatollah Misbah text or the Principles of Philosophy and Methodology of Realism of Allama Tabatabai that I sent. So one of the two would be ideal to go through. Again, this is a beginner's level, so there shouldn't be any expectation that we're entering into deep theories or detailed arguments. Hopefully that can be for another kind of course, but this would be, inshallah, enough for the purpose of what it is that we are have intended. So in any case, should you have any questions from the Principles of Philosophy book or Philosophical Instructions book or Principles of Philosophy and Methodology of Realism, inshallah, you're able to ask maybe by email or anything else. But the really good bonus is the detail that Ayatollah Misbah and also his teacher Allama Tabatabai go through, and also along with that the commentaries that have been given by Shahid Mutahari rahimahullah. Anyway, we have spoken in detail about the level of sensory perception and the level of empirical knowledge, and how we are able to rely on sensual knowledge and also empirical knowledge, and the benefits, the pros and cons of our senses, on our experiments that we conduct, and the information we receive from it, and to what extent can we rely on it, how they can be justified, and whether or not they are correspondent to reality. We've also made it very clear how difficult it is to accept skepticism in the realm of epistemology and knowledge, and of course how that would also extend to religious skepticism as well. And just because someone is formulating an argument or presenting an argument doesn't not necessarily mean that what they are saying is absolute truth. Just because someone is, for example, very eloquent in their delivery, or they are able to, speak something with such perfect literature, does not give them some kind of precedence in them being haqq. And you'll see this in today's world, especially in social media, with what they call influencers, or what they call people that have vast many followers. So someone who is liked by others does not give them, for example, that status of authority. Being of authority or being true is not all about the form of delivery. And that's exactly why when it comes to logic, and I will be mentioning in today's session, again, we've said this before, but I'll say it again, how important it is to learn ilmul mantiq, to learn logic. Because when it comes to something like, as I said, formulating an argument, which is based on a syllogistic argument, when you're presenting the qiyas in the minor premise, the major premise, and the conclusion, you need to make sure that it is flawless. And what kind of argument is it? Is it burhan? Burhan, or a demonstrative argument, is the only 100% yaqini, reliable, justified argument that can be put forward. With a burhani argument, it's going to be absolutely true. It's going to be absolutely correspondent to reality. But then after the level of burhan, you have 4 other sina'at. That's why they refer to them as as-sina'atul khams, the 5 disciplines, the 5 skills, and all of them are somehow presenting something in the form of some kind of information or argument, like al-jadal, dialectic arguments, or like al-mughalata, fallacious arguments. And we've talked about a fallacy and how it's shibhul yaqeen, how it seems to be something yaqini, but it isn't. And the third one is, the fourth one, so it's burhan, then mughalata, then jadal. Jadal is dialectic. Jadal, basically jadal is, the purpose for jadal is that you are presenting an argument purely for the sake of arguing your points, or as they say, iqhamul khasm, for you to overcome your opponent. Now with jadal, you're going to be mixing between things that are burhani and also things that are, for example, commonly accepted by people, or maybe even naqli. And then we have the khitaba. The fourth one is khitaba, and khitaba is rhetoric, how you are delivering and your method of delivering. You know, maybe someone could be saying something, delivering something in such a wonderful way that it's mesmerizing and captivating, especially for the audience. Does that mean that it is correspondent to reality? The answer is no. And the fifth sana'a, the fifth discipline, is ash-shi'r, poetry. Poetry is also very, very magic as well, as far as getting someone's attention. Now, how is someone able to distinguish between these and understand what burhan is? All of that is related to ilmul mantiq, ilmul mantiq. So we have spoken about al-hawas. We've touched on empirical knowledge, and we've said that al-hawas is reliable only in the realm of tasawwur, and of course it's the door that gives us access to ilm. So it's very important. We cannot dismiss all knowledge that comes from al-hawas, we just need to make sure that the aql governs all of our knowledge. Tajruba, empirical knowledge, knowledge that is based on experiments, for example, statistics or things like that, is also reliable, but again, only in the case that they correspond to reality do they become reliable. And the third, which governs both al-tajruba and al-hiss, is al-ilm al-aqli, or the valuable tool of rationalizing, which of course is something exclusive for al-insan. They refer to ilm al-mantiq, defines al-insan as haywanun natiq, as a rational animal, as a animal that has an intellect, has reason. So this is the one thing that distinguishes the human being from any other kind of creation, that they have a faculty called al-aql. With al-qalb and al-wahi, that's going to be for our fifth and last session. So here we have pretty much gone through most of this, haven't we? We've mentioned these, just wanted to draw. We've mentioned these things, and we have covered them in our previous discussion. We've spoken about al-ilm al-huduri, we've spoken about al-ilm al-husuli, and we said that with al-ilm al-huduri, it is knowledge that we have instinctive within ourselves, that we don't learn, that also corresponds to reality based on how it is, not in the sense of correspondent, but how it is that we feel within ourselves, which means that it is never going to be wrong. It is never going to be wrong. If I, for example, love a flower, it doesn't matter what happens, that feeling of my love for this flower is going to be absolutely correct, and it cannot be something that I deny. And this is, of course, different to al-ilm al-husuli, which is by acquisition, knowledge that you acquire. Then we said that al-ilm al-husuli is divided into tasawwur, which are things that you conceptualize mentally, and then al-tasdiq, which are things that you affirm in reality. You're at home, and we gave this example. Someone says it's raining outside, and then you conceptualize that, and then you affirm it when you, of course, go outside and realize yourself that it is raining. These two are further divided into badihi, which is self-evident, and nadari, which is speculative, or which is, as I wrote here, discursive, which basically means that they are things that you have to look into and research about and read about and learn about. Now, if it is something that is in the realm of tasawwur, then it has absolutely nothing to do with, as we mentioned in our previous lesson, didn't we? Haq, batil, right, wrong, or anything of that sort. Why? Because it's still in the realm of tasawwur. that realm of tasawwur is not a realm of, for example, informing something being valid or invalid, or true or not true. It's just the realm of conceptualizing. And if you remember, we mentioned that segment from that part from Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Tusi's Naqd al-Muhassal. Then, of course, with tasdeeq, no, the case is going to be different. With tasdeeq, you have things that are badihi, and that is going to be in the level of certitude and have yaqeen. And then you have things that are nadari, either with nadari in al-tasdeeq, it's either something that you are able to relay back, relay back to badihi, which would also become yaqini, or you are not able to relay back to badihi, like empirical information that you have confirmed, for example, and that's not going to be in the level of badihi. And so even when it comes to a statement that you make, is that statement itself, how are you able to deal with that statement where you can define where this statement originates from, and whether or not this statement carries any level of value as far as knowledge is concerned? If this statement has a level of value, does it correspond to reality or not? Can it be justified or not? And all these other things that, you know, we come across. So when the skeptic says that there is no external reality, or everything is subject to question, everything is subject to doubt, that statement is also subject to doubt or not? If you were to say that everything is subject to doubt, we have to doubt everything, does that also include the doubting of that very statement that you just made, or does it not include? If it does include, then that's self-contradictory, and that means that no, it's not everything that can be doubted. There are certain things that you can doubt, which we, of course, agree with. But if you say everything can be doubted, even this very statement that everything can be doubted can also be doubted, well, that's going to be based on another statement, which is saying everything can be doubted, even this very statement that can be doubted. And as Allama Tabatabai says, that is going to lead to either dawr, to either a vicious circle, or it's going to lead to an infinite regress. And in both cases, these are philosophically batil. And therefore, back to square one, where you have to make sure that you categorize everything in its proper, correct way, and not give something more value beyond what it carries. So in sensual knowledge, or in sensory perception, what governs that is your cognitive knowledge that you have. And when it comes to something like your hawas, and it making a mistake, what defines or what pinpoints the mistake that was made is your aql. And that's why it is impossible for us as human beings to relieve the role of al-aql. It is impossible for us to abandon al-aql in order to gain the absolute knowledge that we need. That same argument, when it comes to everything can be doubted, it is also applicable to everything is relative. There is no absolute haqq. When you say there is no absolute haqq and everything is relative, your opinion is true, my opinion is true, his opinion is true, her opinion is true. We all carry truth based on the level of understanding that we have. So everything is relative. Even that statement, is that relative as well? This is, of course, where, you know, the epistemological arguments come into place. We've explained and defined what al-aql means, but we're going to say it again. Now, the thing is, in English, you will come across different terms used for aql: cognition, reason, understanding, intellect, intellectuality, rationality. All of them pretty much fall under this same one area of al-aql. Clearly we understand that when it comes to something like al-aql, it is very self-evident, very obvious. That's why, you know, defining al-aql, as I'm going to mention, is like defining what water is. You can define what water is, can't you? This cognitive perception of reality, it could be sensual, it could be non-sensual, and it also could be metaphysical. Your aql has that ability. Your aql can go beyond just relating to information by using senses. It can go to something more than that, like the imaginative realm, or like you being able to make, to calculate things with mathematics, for example, or in the case of philosophy and understanding certain abstract information. This is the definition of aql. And of course, when you, as I said, it's like asking what is light or what is water, because, you know, it's badihi, you know, al-aql. When with us human beings, it's something very, very clear and obvious. Of course, we know that with al-aql and its position in Islam, it's very, very important, very valuable, especially in madhab Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And clearly we know, for example, in Kitab al-Kafi by Al-Shaykh al-Kulayni rahimahullah, the first chapter is the chapter of Kitab al-Aql, the chapter of Aql. And there are many, many ahadith from Ahlul Bayt that speak about al-Aql. Anyway, I found this hadith from Imam Sadiq in a little dialogue that he had with someone, and Imam Sadiq also mentions the role of the five senses, where he says, ذكرت الحواس الخمس وهي لا تنفع شيئا بغير دليل. The five senses are of no benefit without without evidence. بغير دليل. Of course, evidence is going to be al-aql, isn't it? كما لا يقطع الظلم بغير misbah. The same way as you are not able to traverse through a dark place without having light. So basically, aql is the light of darkness. And when it does come to something like al-aql, it is the role that it has, the responsibility that it has, is in the form of ta'lif, tajmi', ta'miq, all of these things that, of course, the aql does. Got a short clip that I wanted to show you before we carry on.
Share your passion with the world.
Aristotle once described humans as the rational animal. Well, actually, he said that man is the rational animal, but we don't have to be sexist just because he was. And if you've ever gotten into an argument with someone about religion or politics or which Hemsworth is the hottest, then you've experienced how irrational people can be about their opinions. So what Aristotle meant is that rationality is our distinguishing characteristic. It's what sets us apart from the beasts. And no matter how much you disagree with someone about God or Obama or Chris Hemsworth, you can at least grant that they are not beasts. Because most of the time, at least, people can be persuaded by arguments. You use arguments all the time, in the comments, at family dinners, with your friends. You probably just don't think of them the same way that philosophers do. When you try and convince your parents to loan you the car, or when you're talking up crash course to your friends, you are using arguments. Thanks, by the way. Each time you tell someone to do or believe something, or when you're explaining why you do or believe something, you are giving an argument. The problem is, the vast majority of people aren't really good at arguments. We tend to confuse making a good argument with like having witty comebacks or just making your points more loudly and angrily, instead of building a case on a solid foundation of logic, which can be harder than it sounds. But learning about arguments and strong reasoning will not only make you a better philosopher, it will also set you up to be a more persuasive person, someone who people will listen to, someone who's convincing. So yeah, these skills are beneficial no matter what you want to do with your life, so you might as well know how to argue properly. If you want to learn how to argue, then you should probably start around 2,400 years ago, when Plato was laying out how reason can and should function in the human mind. He believed that we all have what he called a tripartite soul, what you might think of as yourself or your psyche, divided into three parts. First, there's the rational or logical part of the soul, which represents cool reason. This is the aspect of yourself that seeks the truth and is swayed by facts and arguments. When you decide to stop eating bacon for 2 meals a day because, as delicious as it is, it's bad for you, then you make that decision with the guidance of the rational part of your soul. But then there's the spirited aspect, often described as the emotional part of the self, although that doesn't really quite capture it. The spirited soul isn't just about feeling, it's also about how your feelings fuel your actions. It's the part that responds in righteous anger at injustice, the part that drives your ambition and calls upon you to protect others. It gives you a sense of honor and duty and is swayed by sympathy. So if you decide to stop eating bacon because you just finished reading Charlotte's Web and now you're in love with Wilbur, then you're being guided by the spirited part of your soul. But we share the next part of our soul with other animals, be they pig or moose or aardvark. The appetitive part is what drives you to eat, have sex, and protect yourself from danger. It is swayed by temptations that are carnal and visceral. So at those times when you go ahead and just eat all the bacon because it just smells so dang good, the appetitive aspect of your soul is in control. Now, Plato believed that the best human beings, and I should point out here that Plato most definitely did believe that some people were better than others, are always ruled by the rational part of their soul because it works to keep the spirited and the appetitive parts in check. People who allow themselves to be ruled by their spirited or appetitive selves are base, he believed, and not fully, properly human. Now, most of us don't buy into the concept of the tripartite soul anymore, or the idea that some humans are less human than others, but we do understand that we're all motivated by physical desires, emotional impulses, and rational arguments. And philosophers continue to agree with Plato that reason should be in the driver's seat. So how do you know if you're good at it? How can you test your reasoning? Well, let's head over to the thought bubble for some flash philosophy. Throughout this course, we're going to apply our philosophical skills by pondering puzzles the answers. So think of these exercises as philosophical men are required by law to be clean shaven. This town has only one barber, a man who must follow strict rules. Rule number 1, he must shave all men who do not shave themselves. Rule number 2, he must not shave any man who does shave himself. It's the nightmare of every libertarian and every mustachioed hipster, but here's the question. Does the barber shave himself. Because think about it, the barber only shaves men who don't shave themselves. So if he does shave himself, then he must not, because the barber's not allowed to shave guys who shave themselves. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he has to be shaved by the barber, because that's the law. Russell came up with this puzzle to illustrate the fact that a group must always be a member of itself. That means, in this case, that all men who shave themselves has to include every guy who shaves himself, including the barber. Otherwise, the logic that dictates the group's existence just doesn't hold up. And if the barber is a logical impossibility, then he can't exist, which means the reasoning behind his existence is inherently flawed. And philosophy doesn't tolerate flawed reasoning. So how do we make sure that we're ruled by good, sound, not flawed reason? By perfecting the art of the argument. An argument in philosophy isn't just a shouting match. Instead, philosophers maintain that your beliefs should always be backed up by reasons, which we call premises. Premises form the structure of your argument. They offer evidence for your belief, and you can have as many premises as you like as long as they support your conclusion, which is the thing that you actually believe. So let's dissect the anatomy of an argument. There are actually several different species of arguments. Probably the most familiar and the easiest to carry out is the deductive argument. The main rule of a deductive argument is if your premises are true, then your conclusion must be true. And knowing that something is actually true is very rare and awesome. So here's a boiled down version of a good deductive argument. Premise 1, all humans are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is human. Conclusion, Socrates is mortal. This kind of reasoning, where one fact leads to another, is called entailment. Once we know that all humans are mortal and that Socrates is human, those facts entail that Socrates is mortal. Deduction begins with the general, in this case what we know about human mortality, and reasons down to the specific, Socrates in particular. What's great about deductive arguments is that the truth of the premises must lead to the truth of the conclusion. When this happens, we say that the argument is valid. There's no way for the conclusion to be false if the premises are true. Now check out this argument. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates was Plato's teacher. That argument is invalid because nothing about human mortality can prove that Socrates was Plato's teacher. As you might have noticed, there are plenty of mortal humans who never taught Plato. What's interesting, though, is that this argument does happen to have a true conclusion, which leads us to another issue, and that is validity is not the same as truth. All valid really means is that if the premises are true, then your conclusion can't be false. But that doesn't mean that your premises prove your conclusion to be correct. Like in the case of whether Socrates was Plato's teacher, the premises are true and the conclusion is true, but the argument is still not valid because the premises don't in any way prove the conclusion. It just happens to be true. So if your premises don't guarantee the truth of your conclusion, then you can end up with some really crappy arguments, like this one. All cats are mammals. I'm a mammal, therefore I'm a cat. As much as part of me would like to be my cat, this is invalid because the conclusion doesn't entail from the premises at all. I mean, all cats are mammals, but all mammals aren't cats, which means there are such things as non-cat mammals, which I am just one example of. And it probably goes without saying, but you can have a perfectly valid argument and still have a false conclusion if any of your premises are false. For example, all humans have tails. My brother John is a human, therefore John Green has a tail. The argument is totally valid because the premises entail the conclusion. The reasoning totally stands up. It's just that one of the premises is flawed. Since I'm reasonably certain that John doesn't have a tail, I've seen him in a bathing suit, this argument is not deductively sound. And a deductively sound argument is one that's free of formal flaws or defects. It's an argument whose premises are all true, and that's valid, which means its conclusion is guaranteed to be true. So, sound arguments should always be your goal. The reason that deduction is prized by philosophers and lots of other important kinds of thinkers is that it's the only kind of argument that can give you a real certainty. But it's limited, because it only works if you're starting with known true premises, which are hard to come by. And for what it's worth, deductive truths are usually pretty obvious. They don't tend to lead us to startling new information, like the fact that I'm not a cat or that John doesn't have a tail. So instead of starting with premises that are already certain, like deduction does, you're going to have to know how to determine the truth of and your confidence in your premises, which means you're going to have to acquaint yourself with the other species of arguments, which we're going to do next time. But today we talked about the value of reason, the structure of arguments, and we took a close look at one kind of argument.
So that was very nice, actually. That's all I can say is that's what they're good at in presentation. I think an important point that was made was when you're presenting an argument, it's not a matter of how loud you are. And I think that's very important. That's what khitaba does. In Fann al-Khitaba, the khatib or the orator, the person delivering the talk is going to be very sensational, going to be loud, going to make sure that he captivates the audience by hand gestures, by the toning of his voice, by doing things that persuade people into maybe even subconsciously accepting what it is that they're saying, by using slogans that are catchy, and just look at church sermons and these Sunday morning evangelical programs, and that's how you will understand how captivating and how useful khitaba is, because they mix even a variety of things, stories with broad statements like Jesus loves you, Jesus is there for you, he died on the cross for you. These things make people feel that it's personal, that Jesus is for me, Jesus did this for me, Jesus died for me, Jesus sacrificed his life for me. But then it doesn't instigate any further query, because I'm so stuck to that level of the statements. So I'm not going to ask, oh, well, but what does it mean by sacrifice, and Jesus died for me? Why did he die for my sins? Why did these kind of questions are not going to be looked into, because it's all a matter of sensationalism, isn't it? It's very similar to when you are in a soccer stadium and you're so focused on the goal and the soccer player winning, your group winning. Along with that is the music. Along with that is the dancing in the church, for example, and the choir and everyone joining along. So, it's not a matter of haq or batil or anything. Most importantly, along with all of that, it's how noisy a person may be. So, of course, that comes with mughalata as well. Sometimes people use mughalata along with khitaba and jadal to prove their arguments. So, for example, you destabilize your opponent when you're arguing by shouting, by screaming and shouting, and that itself is going to make the chain of thought of your opponent lose concentration, and therefore you will be able to win because you're louder and you're shouting and you're making all these hand gestures and things like that. So people will see this person to be more confident, or you're louder in your voice, or you talk faster. So that's going to lose a lot when it comes to but people, the general mass, like that kind of sensationalism. And that's why when we're talking about the role of aql, when we talk about reason and rationality, we need to be very, very specific to what governs everything. That aql itself, even though every human being is a haywan natiq, is aql, does have the faculty of aql, it does not necessarily mean that they are using it, as Plato said, that they are using it in their full potential. And here down the bottom, I just mentioned, I'm not going to go into detail with it, the liar paradox. Everything I say is a lie. Well, that statement itself that you just said, is that a lie as well or not? But I'm not going to go into detail with that. Someone has their hand up. Brother Bilal, yes, did you want to say something?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Yes, please. If the question isn't relevant to the subject we're discussing, then please apologies and feel free to move on. But in the presentation, it touched about truth. And I mean, I'd love if you would at some point, if you could do a short course on truth.
Yeah, theory of truth, Ahsant.
Because this is something that I've asked a few people, and I haven't been able to get a real kind of sense of clarity on this, where it's really outlined and framed in a way that's clear. So when somebody is saying something, there's willfully misleading and lying, but then two people, beyond just a knowledge of a subject, even if it's an event and the interpretation of an event, what determines how much more truthful one's understanding of that or the relaying of that is than the other person? And what is the governing faculty of that? What is it? Akal that is the governing faculty. And for example, so you gave the example of the of the church preacher, and we see that even within the different factions of Christianity. You go into an Anglican church, and the sermon will be delivered in a very different way to an American evangelical church, and it'll be much more composed. It'll be calmer. The pace will be more gentler. The tone will be more even, and we see that even within our Islamic circles, like especially during Muharram. Sometimes it's quite startling. And I remember it was the Muharram just before COVID hit us. And from center to center, masjid to masjid, and even from evening to evening, the way a speaker would kind of present themselves and present the topic, you could see sometimes the very same issues being discussed. And one person would make outrageous exaggerations and say things which later, when I would try and get clarity on them, ulama would say, well, he just said that in the heat of the moment. That isn't how it is. There isn't a dalil for that, etc., etc. So at that point, is it because the speaker isn't giving regard to the truth and he just wants to create emotion? Or is it that the heightened emotion in the speaker is having a nullifying effect on his akal, which kind of blinds him to the truth and to the realities of certain things, and so he makes fallacies?
Yeah, Ahsant. Thank you, brother. You had some good, interesting points there, especially with the theory of truth. Inshallah, I'd love to have some time to hopefully speak about the theory of truth. Although it is relevant to epistemology as well, it is indeed relevant. But I would say that with the theory of truth, it's going to be more practical for us. You know, a lot of things that we might see in areas of, for example, epistemology is philosophical, maybe. But when it comes to the theory of truth, haq, batil, how we're able to justify what is haq and what is batil in that level, I think that's very important. Because if you remember, we spoke about the different trends in Shia Islam as far as the role of aql. And we said that we do have some, if we could say, fideist kind of elements in certain trends in Shia Islam, very similar to Sunni Islam, like Ahlul Hadith, very similar to those fideists that completely reject the role of aql in religion. They don't completely reject aql itself, but they say aql has no place in religion. Now, of course, that means by default that, you know, you're going to have to keep areas, certain areas away from religion, or certain fields, certain disciplines away from religion, especially philosophy. But reality is that if we didn't have these things, where would we be as far as building a strong religious ideology? Shaheed al-Sadr, rahmatullahi alayh, when he wrote Falsafatuna, when he wrote Our Philosophy, his main objective, his main goal was to eliminate the very near and dangerous threat of communism and the theories of Lenin and Marx and socialism that was infiltrating into the Middle East, into Iraq, and even into Al-Najaf al-Ashraf. So much so that there were people that were saying that even sons and family members of esteemed scholars were being influenced by this kind of new trend of socialism and things like that. And this is exactly why Shaheed al-Sadr presented that book, Falsafatuna. And if it was not for his vast knowledge and his level of expertise in rational sciences, he would not have written it. He would not have written it. And the same can be said in many other fields as well. You know, who was able to tackle the very, if we could say, dangerous theories of certain Muslim liberal Muslims, or so-called reformist Muslims who were attacking Islam from within, and until today they exist. You know, the great scholars that we have that were well versed in rational sciences tackled these issues. You know, Shaheed Mutahari, Shaheed al-Sadr, Sheikh Musbah, Sheikh Jawadi, these kind of ulama, you know, were and have always been at the forefront of tackling these kind of rational debates. And so it goes without saying pretty much that the role of aql is extremely important in everything that we do. Coming back to our subject at hand, we have to ask the question in epistemology, as far as we are concerned, can the intellect make mistakes? Al-aql bima huwa aql, that reasoning, in as much as it is reasoning, no, it can't. But your aql influenced by certain things, yes, it can. Because when it comes to ta'aqqul, it is not just a matter of understanding something, but it is a matter of the preliminary work that has been done as far as the collecting of information, as far as the joining of the pieces of information, as far as the level of understanding for each and every one of them, as far as the correct sequence that needs to happen. Like, for example, in those syllogistic arguments that was mentioned, every human is mortal, for example. In the minor premise, something that is in the minor premise needs to be repeated in the major premise, or else the conclusion is going to be invalid. And so there needs to be a similarity in one of the areas between and the repetition in the minor and the major in order for the conclusion to be valid. That, of course, is going to reflect on whether the piece of information that you receive is right or is wrong. And that's where we understand that outside of the realm of badihiyat or self-evident, there is going to be a possibility that the information is wrong. Can it be rectified? This is the important thing. Skeptics say, no, there's nothing that can be done about it. Maku chara, there's no solution, as Iraqis say. But the answer is yes, there is a solution. In referring it back, relaying it back to the musallamat, those pieces of information that we have that are self-evident, that are beyond any kind of criticism, that all human beings would agree with, right? Anyway, read through this. I'm not going to read through sentence by word, but hopefully you've read through it in order for you to know what's being referred to. Anyway, here I just wanted to mention some ahadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They're very, very nice, but these are places where mistakes are made, and this kind of like answers what brother Bilal was saying as far as fannul khitaba, and sometimes it's for the sake of capturing the audience, sometimes it's for the sake of, you know, the end justifies the means. You want people to cry, and you're going to be saying whatever it is that you want to say, and you want those people to say va 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 nare haydari and all these things. So, you know, you're going to add a little bit of masala and some spices and things like that. But of course, that's why not every argument is a aqli argument. And this again shows how important logic is, and to define the types of arguments, what a fallacy is, what a mughalata is, and whether or not there is a mixture of your personal convictions, of your opinionated views, of your distorted image, of you being subjected to succumbing to your shahwa. And of course, that is going to become very problematic. It's going to become an obstruct to in hindering your the validity and truthfulness of what it is that you're presenting. And of course, that becomes very, very problematic. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, "Kam min aqlin asirin tahta hawan amir." How many times do we have someone who has a aql that is the slave of their master, that is their hawa, that is their desire. Kam min aqlin asirin, enslaved aql of a master, and that master is their hawa, their desires. Or a big problem that we also face is the ujub, the ghurur that people have, some people have, especially those who are a little bit educated. You know, they are intellectual, they're smart, they're intelligent, they're smart. You know, they start having too much confidence. You know, that's why in Islam, a person who has knowledge must always remember to have humbleness, to be humble, to have tawadhu. And this is where if a person becomes so self-absorbed and always thinking that they have everything right and it's only their way, and they're too confident in the level of intelligent IQ knowledge that they have, then that is going to be their own disaster. That is going to turn them away from what it is that they are going to purely want, and that is aql. عجبت عجب المرء بنفسه أحد حساد عقله. Ujb, which means self-pride, that level of arrogance that a person has because of their knowledge or their intelligence, them being smart and whatnot. Greed, of course, with greed, that is also a destroyer of aql as well, and a destroyer of qalb also. Then there's all these other things that we mentioned down the bottom, and that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا وَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. We're going to be following what it is that our forefathers say, even if their forefathers cannot perceive anything and will never be guided. So that level of arrogance based on the tribe or their nationality or ignorance or wrong influence or all of these things. These are logical. This is the logical side. This one was the insani side, and this is the mantaqi side. When you have something that is a mushtarak lafzi means one word that has different usages, right? Mushtarak lafzi. So different ways of you being able to say the word left. For example, left means left, yasar. Left also means leaving the room. And that's why, for example, you said, I went to the bank. I swam in the bank. Well, is it the river bank that you are referring to, or is it the bank, money bank that you are referring to? Because, well, obviously you can't swim in the money bank, right? But, this is where sometimes a mistake in mantiq will be made. We've spoken about mughalata, we've spoken about fallacy as well. Another thing that is also going to be bahut mushkil here is using big ambiguous words, something that would distract the opponent. You're slipping it in to make sure that the person kind of like gets so excited by your level of knowledge that they don't really focus much on what it is that's being said. And that's why these things are really important for us to understand and remember, because a lot of people use this kind of sly, cunning ways of proving their points, or ambiguous. These groups that pop up, that turn into cults, they use very, very deceiving kind of tactics to attract followers. Like they would come up with for example, certain ahadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that are very ambiguous. very ambiguous. You know, it says, it talks about one of the signs of the reappearance of the Imam Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif. But that sign does not, you know, really pinpoint exactly what it is that's going to happen. So it's kind of like, as they say, two-sided, or do pahlu, as they say in Farsi. Yani it has multiple meanings and can be interpreted in multiple ways. You read it in one particular way, I read it in one particular way. You understand it one particular way, I understand it in one particular way. That can't be used as a solid base for example, for aqidah, for belief. It can't be. Generalizing, that is also going to be problematic as far as logical argument is concerned. You know, beautiful people are arrogant. I don't know if you like that example that I put here, but yeah, making something a illah that really isn't a illah. Is religion cause for poverty or not? Which means the more atheist you are, the more wealthy you will be. Because, you know, people say that, yeah, most atheists are religious and therefore are non-religious. Most atheists are religious. That doesn't make sense. Most atheists are wealthy. That's what it should say. Sorry about that. Yeah. Did anyone else pick up on that mistake?
Yeah, I did. I was waiting for you to. I was going to send you a private comment.
Sorry.
Are you exhorting us to become atheists?
Most atheists are religious. That doesn't make sense. So most atheists are wealthy.
Explains my irreligiosity.
Does that mean that being atheist by default, being atheist makes you wealthy? Or, for example, the West now, the Western world is advancement, technology, cleanliness, peace, good governments, good social benefits. And the Middle East, war, dirty, problems, no social benefits, everyone hates everyone, no technology. What does that hint? You know, are we able to use that as an argument? You know, the more you head towards the West, the cleaner it is. The more you head towards the East, the dirtier it is. Does that signify anything? Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, ليس للعاقل أن يكون شاخصا إلا في ثلاث. Aqil, an intelligent person, is not going to become outstanding in the way that they use their aql, except in three cases. Marammatin lima'ash, that you prepare yourself, that you facilitate yourself in work, yourself in such a way that you earn an income, ma'ash, earn a livelihood. Oh, khutwatin fi ma'ad, or that you are making progress and in a step, a positive step towards what is going to help you in Judgment Day, in resurrection, in ma'ad. Oh, ladhatin fi ghayri muharram, or that you seek pleasure, in things that are not haram. You seek pleasure in things that are not haram. So, of course, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, who was Sayyid al-Uqala, he is explaining to us what al-aql is. And of course, for us as Muslims, aql is a combination of all of these things. It's not just a matter of intelligence. It's not just a matter of having a high Q score, but way more than that. Okay, so our last slide, and inshallah, in our next session, we're going to be talking about the final two sources of knowledge and whether we can justify them or not, and how valuable they are for us Muslims. So these are some conclusions that we are able to summarize when it comes to the role of reason in epistemic knowledge and its justification. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If anyone has any questions or any comments, anything that you would like to share, then Bismillah. And by the way, our numbers are getting smaller and smaller, so something's happening. It's most probably my fault. If there are no comments or no questions or anything, then inshallah we will leave it for either our page on the group discussion, or if anyone, yeah, I know, that's right, brother. Or if anyone wants to message me or message the group, and inshallah we will see you all in our next program. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.